Good morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scouser's Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser. It is, let me get this freaking microphone over here. It's going to be a lot of technical. I'll be amazed if we don't have any technical difficulties because it's been kind of a scramble this morning. But it's Wednesday, so back to being the greatest dad. Greatest dad in an empty nest now, by the way. And that's why I don't have a laptop because I had to donate my laptop. I got to go get me a new one now. But with us this morning, John, who has been not suspended, not yet. What's going on?
Well, my Twitter account was suspended for using some derogatory language. Apparently,
Really? What did you say?
Much like a certain Liverpool captain.
Did you call Elon Musk a clown? What did you say?
I actually don't know. It was regarding a tweet about this video game review that I heavily disagreed with. But hey, man, listen, it's Twitter. Twitter isn't real. So what's real is Virgil possibly getting suspended more. So
yes. I guess we'll start with that one. Everybody's gathering around. Good morning to everyone. Sparky's here. Alan's here. Serzi was here before even we got here. So the gang is gathering around. So let's talk. Yeah, let's start with that in terms of headlines. Well, you know what? Let's do the transfer thing first because let's get that out of the way.
Get that out of the way, yeah.
So like a lot of chats, bazillion names, and then now all the interns in the world are rejoicing in the fact that the Saudi League can be interested in anyone. So any intern that works at a website, if they need news, they're like, you know what? Saudis are interested in this dude as a news, and then everybody's like, what? Yeah. So there was like a lot of talk about Gomez, actually like a combined deal with Gomez and Mo. I read in a couple of places, just craziness overall. I don't see any of that happening, but let's take a look at the one with what's going on in midfield. Doucoure, who did not play yesterday, wasn't in the squad yesterday, but Crystal Palace says that has nothing to do with it, and actually the deal is off. I guess here's the question to you. At the prices that they're talking about, like in terms of like 70 and stuff like that, shouldn't it be off anyway? Because I'm like, if it's 70, yeah, I'm not sold on this. I mean, I know it's not our money, but still, right. I don't want to. I guess my biggest thing is I don't want to sit here in January or next year and say, shit, man, we shouldn't have spent 70 on him because now this dude is available for like 90 or 100 or whatever. It's bright over there.
Yeah, I forgot to turn on the screen. So I'm sorry if there was like a bit of lights there. As Tim said, it's a day of technical difficulties, people. So it's not just with him, it's with me as well. So your question about Doucoure, you're asking if we should get him for 70 million? Is it too much?
I mean, I guess it depends on the price. So Z says Doucoure apparently has been offered a contract from Liverpool. Sparky says, don't think any more signings that I've been happy with that. I am not happy with that. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But I think we've kind of created the situation ourselves by waiting so long. And Doucoure, I mean, if I told you in June we're signing Doucoure for 70 million, you'd be like, why the fuck?
Yeah. It's a pretty underwhelming signing if we talked about it last June. Now we're pretty much backed into a corner in terms of like getting a defensive midfielder. And again, Endo is a good stopgap, is a good band-aid signing. But if we have him as our defensive midfielder over the next 2 seasons, we're playing with fire. So
yeah, I think, you figure something will happen, right? Like between now and whenever. But even going into at least January, the rest of the season, are we okay with Endo and Basetic? I think that's where we're at right now.
Well, personally, I'm not, Tim. I mean, when Fabinho left, there was still a bit of time. We still had more than a month to get someone in. And for our replacement to be Endo and to be reliant on Bacetic and maybe Thiago at that position is, again, playing with fire. So we got less than 48 hours left for Liverpool to make a move. I honestly am not confident. I'm not happy like Sparky, but I don't know. Maybe Klopp sees something different. He sees these guys in the training pitch every day. So I'm just hoping he pulls something again because it's going to be a tough...
I don't know about that. Klopp was seeing imaginary Ox and Keita in the training ground. There was a physio room, and they were still counted as part of the midfield. I mean, here's where I'm at. Like Sparky Parker says, save money, don't overpay, wait until January. I think, yeah, I'm more about the not overpaying at this point. Um, Maybe a loan for a center back, or maybe sign a young center back, or but then it goes back to what you're saying. If he's happy with Kwanzaa, or I
Yeah.
don't know if he's just saying that. I know when he was coming on, the theory was this is club's way of saying, well, this is what we got over here, so I'm putting this kid out there, kind of a thing. Or maybe he really has faith in this kid, and he did play well, but just like we don't want to say, oh, Endo did not play very well and take that as evaluation. I don't want to do the he played well. You can't say like somebody's poor performance is not an evaluation, but take somebody else's good performance as one.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if Kwanzaa is going to be our next center back after Verge, Kanate, Gomez, and Matip, questions need to be asked considering the injury record of those three. Like Verge's injury record is pretty spotless, besides the ACL. But now, lo and behold,
Yeah.
my boy's suspended. So now what? Kanate's injured. Gomez and Matip could literally both pull something against Villa, and then we're left with Kwanzaa as,
Yes.
as our only defender. So, listen, I do not work at Liverpool Football Club. I do not have the qualifications, but us fans have seen this a mile away. So if us fans could see this coming, like literally months ago, the question has to be asked: like, why hasn't Jurgen, why hasn't his buddy Schmadtke seen it? And hopefully, this isn't another season where we paid a price for a lack of foresight, because it looks like we're gambling once again, increasingly gambling on players having to be fit, especially during, for example, the December months where fixtures are just like, every 3 days, right? Yeah. So yeah, oh man, I don't know, Tim. We got less than 2 days. I seriously hope something happens, but I'm not confident.
Amrabat supposedly going to United on loan on the radio 10 minutes. Like, look at Alan listening to 5 things at the same time. Yeah, I don't think we were never really interested, because I think even now the price tag was not that high, and even then we were not interested. That was something that came out, I think, on the World Cup thing. Sider says anyone thinking Endo worth being the reliable CDM until January is deceiving himself. I don't know about that. I don't know how we would know about that. I mean, the dude has not played with 11v11 for more than 20 minutes so far. So I don't know how we can sit down and evaluate him. I don't think it's fair on him. I don't know if it's fair on him to be evaluated after practicing 5 days and playing at Newcastle away, the toughest fixture. That's one of the toughest games that we're going to play in the Premier League all season. So I don't think that's fair to see where he's at. But even then, yeah, Kazi says any endo slender. So I agree. I think it's way too early. Let's wait till another month before we start talking shit, kind of a deal. Let's give the guy some time and see if we can give him 10 other players to play with instead of 9, and see what he does there. How we're going to get to Nunez? Okay, so let's go to this thing. The Caicedo thing. No, there's no way we were going to spend that much on a player who played only one season. I think the difference here is, John, if we signed Caicedo for that money, I mean, we halfway did, and all of us had a big heart on that day, and everybody was happy. Everybody was like singing, like good songs. But I don't think anybody is going to be doing that when we spend 70 or whatever for Doucoure. Nobody was doing that if we spent 50, 60 on Labia. So that's like the difference to me in terms of overspending, right?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Doucoure was never even in the conversation until around 2 weeks ago. Like, we were talking about it before the show started. We didn't even know who he was until 2 weeks ago. So for us to get him, spend that amount of money, it just screams panic buy. Like, at the back of your mind, you're kind of like, you might try and cope and go like, all right, at least we got a defensive midfielder. But then at the back of your mind, you're just like, oh, it was sort of a panic buy anyway. Does he really fit? Does he really fit the style and everything? Is he going to be the long-term solution? Yeah, there's a lot of questions that are going to be asked. But then that is the consequence if you leave your business so late in the window. This is why Fabinho left around June, right? We had a ton of time. So if ever we get into a problem with the defensive midfielder position or the midfield or the defense, like we're having a problem now, it's entirely our fault again. And
Yeah, I think we kind of waited on those deals to materialize a bit too long with perhaps no backup plan. And the problem is, by the time you go back to the backup plan, those people are like, oh, those prices have changed, my friend,
yeah,
kind of a deal. Because now they know you're more desperate. So obviously prices go up, will go up. Cersei was saying Ando needs a little time, and I agree. Saido insists, but Saido hated Henderson too, so I don't know. He's not one. I don't think we know. I mean, all week, first of all, the dude has only practiced 1 week. And all week he's practicing, assuming we're going to have 11 players on the field. So the shape, the formats, and everything like that is practiced that way. The moment we go to 10, we kind of slightly have to change formation again, make the substitution. Diaz comes out. So everything is gone. Like
yeah.
your out pass is gone. What you practice all week in terms of where to clear, everything like that is gone. So, and you're playing away at Newcastle, I think it's way, way too early to make any kind of judgment on Endo. I guess my bigger concern is if Endo is serviceable, which I believe he will be. And, I mean, it's not like people are saying like he's not very athletic or he's not fast. Like, have you guys seen Fab play? It's not like Fab was like a like wasn't running the triathlon. I mean, like he was not. It's just a matter of being where to be, getting the tackles, winning the ball when you commit to a tackle. That's all we're looking for over here. I think more than Endo being serviceable as a starter rest of the season, or at least till January, whatever. I guess I'm more concerned about what you're talking about is when the games get going, can we rely on Basetic injury wise? I think we've seen him play, but we haven't seen him play after the injury for one. And then we have not seen, what he can do long run.
Yeah, like I said, it's playing with fire, Tim. Like for like we put Bacetic in, right? And God forbid he gets injured like his first game or his second game. So now what? So we're gonna have to play position. Yeah. We're gonna have to play what, McAllister in the 6 again or something. So which is why we were talking about it at the start, before the start of the show, which is why Gravenberch is such an appealing option. He can play DM. He's not a DM, but he can play DM. He can play across the midfield. So it in terms of like an ideal Klopp signing, he kind of fits like that Genie Wijnaldum mode where Klopp can just put him wherever in the midfield and then just expect him to do a decent job in terms of like filling in and putting in a good performance. Now he won't be 70 million, that's for sure, because Bayern are sure to get rid of him. Like, he would be the most logical buy, but obviously Liverpool Football Club don't do logical. Like if Liverpool Football Club did logical, we would have had the Fabinho and Henderson replacement like 2 weeks right after. But here we are.
So, unfortunately, I mean, Saida says he wants to decorate his CDM as a star. I think that train has left the station.
Yeah, we all do, Saidu. We all
do. But it's end of August. It's the 30th. That train has left the station. I think we put all our eggs in the Lavia basket initially. Then we were waiting in the bushes to jump on the Caicedo deal, which we did successfully, and then that thing kind of like took a darker turn over there. So this says January we're screwed. No Mo, no Endo. I do not know if Doucoure would be going to the cup. By the way, like I don't know if Mali has qualified or whatever. Well, that doesn't help at all then, because you're sending both your CDMs during that time.
It doesn't help at all. So, which is why Gravenberch again is the best option, because he can play through all positions in midfield. So, and he's not going to cost like an arm and leg. So, hey, Klopp, let's get him. Come on, we still got time. But what do I know, man?
I mean, that's why it's a mess. There's so many names thrown around. I think Gravenberch is the only one that I see as likely, because I do not see us overpaying for Doucoure. I do not see Crystal Palace suddenly saying, okay, come back. We'll do it for like a lot less. Not this late into the window. If we had maybe another 3 weeks to play around, maybe. Is this official that City got Nunez? Because I kind of wanted to talk about that. So I know we said Van Dijk, so let's put Van Dijk in the back burner again, because I'm sure center back talk is going to come up. Let's talk about this whole Nunez thing. I can see why Nunez would want to go to City over Liverpool, because we kind of shunned them at one point anyway. Like we said, no, like we kind of passed on him once. So why would he say, oh, you guys, how about now? You guys see me now, kind of a deal. 2, I mean, Pep obviously rotates a lot more. He knows De Bruyne is out. I mean, he's a need for them right now to start. Mind you, he's a need for us as well. But if Klopp is sold on Endo, Nunez would not be seeing the field a whole lot, unless like in the Europa and like cup games and stuff like that. Where do you stand on Nunez? I personally, as a player, I like him. The 3-4 times I watched him, it's always been against like obviously like the big six or something like that. So maybe not as like he always seems over the top frustrated. I just do not like this body language. I'm not even just talking about that red card he got that day. Just in general, overall, I'm not big on his body language. It's a need right now. We could have easily used them, but it wasn't a guy that once I saw playing, I was never like, we should go get this guy for sure. How do we miss out on him?
Yeah, and that whole thing about we were talking about it at the start, where he basically refused to train until he gets moved to City. That's a big red flag. I know Klopp has a policy about like not wanting assholes on the team. Like we talked about it a lot with Mbappe and how he would possibly fit with Liverpool. Carries too much baggage. I mean, obviously Nunez doesn't carry as much baggage as Mbappe, but those signs that, oh, if he doesn't get his way, he's going to do this, he's going to do that, obviously isn't ideal. And of course, there's the fact that you mentioned where he rejected us once. So that's already a strike against him. Like, obviously at this point, like I can't say I've watched Nunez enough to make like an articulate opinion on him. But in terms of, I would trust Klopp in bringing a decent player and turning him into a pretty good to a world-class sort of player. However, as he said, with the primetime DM, with the world-class DM, that ship has sailed. He's going to City. Pep is probably going to turn him into maybe a top 10 midfielder in the league by the time his time in City is done.
I mean, he will do great there. Obviously, he's surrounded by a lot of talents. I mean, he will definitely do well there. I think he will do well with us too. I just don't think it was anyway. I mean, Sider says, yeah, it could be the way. I don't think it's the wages in this case. We had an opportunity to sign him. We passed on him. I think it's the same thing as Amrabat, one way or the other. And this is on Klopp. Sider can bang on FSG all he wants. That guy was very affordable at the time. We had the money at the time. We passed on him. So one way or another, Klopp didn't want him. I feel the same way in Amrabat. Amrabat was available all freaking summer. We didn't go for him. So one way or the other, we didn't think he was he was the answer to the question of who the hell is going to play midfield. So he's talking about VVD doing the same thing. And I agree. And that's what's so shitty about this is when it happens. So I'm sure City fans are, oh, great. See, like he's doing that so he can come to us. But the Wolves fans are, because this is screwing over Wolves twice. Like he screws them, comes back around the corner, screws them again. Because not only he's not out there playing for him and refusing to practice and stuff, he's stopping them from making more money off of him. They could have probably pulled, if Doucoure does the same thing, we could have probably got a better deal as well. So that's
for sure
a deal in there. I just don't like it. I didn't like it when Van Dijk did it. I didn't like it when Coutinho faked his back injury. That was a phantom injury. I just don't like it because we see it here in American sports a lot. And I understand when it happens in football, because the contracts in most cases, especially for the lower level dudes, are not guaranteed. So if the dude doesn't get his thing then, he could get, and especially in the violent sport like American football, he can get hurt and he can be gone forever. But this kid just came last year, signed a contract. I know we don't want to have like clubs own these guys, but at the same time, if you sign a contract, you should be held to that contract.
Yes. As with all things, Tim, there should be a balance. And, I'm all for players, having their rights not being owned by a team, or as you said, like being governed by a team. Like their move is, oh, they can't like drink some water without asking the team first, or none of that crap, But yeah, Serzi made a great point. Van Dijk did it as well. And I wasn't the biggest fan of that as well, because listen, you're held to a contract. You're professionally obligated to fulfill that contract. So please do until the end. Like if you get your move, that's good. If you don't, well, just continue playing football. Like I know it's completely different situations, but us regular folk, we have a job, we have a contract. We can't exactly just sit around and say, oh, I'm going to be transferring jobs, so I'm not going to be working on my normal job anymore. Like, that is just a one-way trip to get fired, people, so don't do that. Right? So
not recommended.
Yeah, not recommended. So listen, I know it's two completely different environments, two completely different stratospheres, but in practice the idea is just wrong. So not a big fan of it. Nunez doing it to get his way. It looked like it looked like it worked out for him, but again, we're not the biggest fans. Not one bit.
I mean, when Van Dijk was doing it,
Yeah.
I mean, as a fan who's looking to sign him, you're like, oh, good, this should help us.
Yes.
But I don't think anybody is like, I like this guy, like, he's doing this kind of thing. But I don't know. Sparky says it's up to the clubs. They can bench players and let them rot. But that's like now becomes spite. If Wolves did that, the players have the power over here. It's kind of like a totally different scenario, like I say, than like American sports, where the players do have more, because he can pull a Coutinho and say, my back is a little sore, and not play until he gets his way. When the club benches a guy and lets him rot, that's not helping the Wolves at all.
Right.
Because now they're not getting the money, for the sale. You're not able to use the player. And then you don't, here's another thing. It's one thing to say, oh, let's sit him in the bench. Atmosphere is very important. You don't want a toxic guy in the locker room, because that shit spreads really, really fast. So that guy sitting on the bench is going to spread that poison to everybody else on the bench, everybody else who's not getting regular time. Or, it's just not a good person to have. You don't want a negative guy. I mean, anybody who's been in management can tell you that it only takes one guy to start screwing everything else up. So it doesn't matter who he is, how valuable he is. It almost becomes addition by subtraction by getting that equation out of there.
And the thing is, I think why it's like incredibly common here in America is because teams don't get relegated. So, for example, if when Anthony Davis didn't want to play out his contract with the Pelicans back in the day before he got traded with the Lakers, the Pelicans were fine to let him sit around, I guess. Like, sure, they're not getting as much for their investment, but
I guess we're getting a better pick.
Right. We're getting a better pick. But here, like, Nunez is one of Wolves' best players, and Wolves are one of the favorites to be relegated this season. So obviously, for them to avoid that, they got to put their best players on the pitch. Like, if you have Nunez not wanting to train, not wanting to play, the financial implications of getting relegated are way, way, way more critical than, let's say, not being able to sell Nunez or whatever. So, like, listen, there's not much room for pride, not much room for, a saga here in Europe compared to America. So that's the difference, I feel, as well.
Yeah, if real club is ahead of player, if any player wishes to leave, then let him go. But at the same time, then you're kind of like screwing over these smaller clubs. I think it's easier for us to say that because, I don't know, like nobody's holding, apart from maybe like a player like Coutinho is probably the last guy we had like that, right? That I can think of. That's in the recent history, at least, saying like they want to go to another club. Yeah, Sparky says, hate that way American sports are run. Yes, I agree. I think like we talked about this before, same issue with Major League Soccer. The lack of relegation, I think, is huge because it kind of like, not only that, the fact that you're rewarded for being the shittiest is also bad by like the draft and stuff like that.
This is going to be like an entirely separate show, but I feel like there's a lot we could take there that would help, for example, the Premier League, aka maybe some sort of cap, some sort of salary cap. Like, we got teams like City and Newcastle spending like what? Right? Like, if your spending is revenue based, the gap between top teams and lower teams, especially as the years go by, just get bigger and bigger. So imagine if we see City win the league over the next 5-6 years. I don't think that's going to be good.
Like that was the whole FFP stuff was supposed to be. Like, you can only spend what you have, because I don't think it's fair to say that's one thing I don't like over here. The 49ers should be able to do more than Jacksonville if they have like a bigger following. Like, you should not be limited to what that little guy is doing so he can keep up with you. It just doesn't like sit well. I understand the competitiveness, blah, blah, blah. Like I say, that's another show by itself. that's what it was supposed to do. But there's so many loopholes,
Yeah.
and there's so many ways to kind of show income. I mean, that's the problem. Like, they're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, they're playing $6 billion for a thing on the sleeve. Imagine that. We found a sponsor who has a lot of money, kind of thing.
Right.
So, I mean, we were laughing our ass out with my brother. That Galatasaray, and now they're going to be under investigation for this. When they signed Zaha, they said an unnamed sponsor like picked up the agent fee.
Huh.
Okay, like what kind of a sponsor wants to remain anonymous?
Yeah.
That really defeats the purpose of being a sponsor, doesn't it? Like you want your name out there, so they can even do that shadiness, right? But that's the thing. That's what FFP was supposed to do, I think, to keep things legit, especially against teams like City and stuff like that. And I don't know if I want that either. Yeah, I do want the money spent. I think we do have the money. We were going to spend the money. I don't think this is a lack of money. I think this is a lack of poor timing, and then kind of sticking to your guns in terms of your policies, which I don't know. You go spend 70, 80 on Doucoure, you are setting a pretty bad precedent, I think, in terms of, being fleeced and knowing that you have money. That's one thing I feel like City does really well with, to be honest with you. Everybody knows they have money, but they don't get fleeced when they do deals. Somehow, they don't say, oh, City, that'll be $50. Like they don't do that. They freaking, they still get good value in their purchases. But when the money, when the price is really high, they just come in and throw it on the table because obviously they have it. Went to watch Plymouth Palace last night. Little clubs need trickle down money. American styles don't allow that. I don't know. It's that's a whole topic to get into.
Yeah, it's a whole nother video.
Yeah, I was like kind of going off of the whole like player contract thing, because then these guys have like minor league teams, so that team supports that team. There's a kind of like stuff, all that. Let's see. Players have the power if they see out the contracts, and I think that's the thing, right? Maybe have something like, I don't know how this will be enforced, but like a 401k plan. When you take it out early, you pay a fine. So if Wolves has, if he says, I want to go, I want out of my contract, then you know what, dude? You have to refund 20% of your signing fee. There you go. Done. I solved the problem. I don't know how you would enforce this, because the guy would say, I don't really want to leave. I kind of want to leave and not pay the 20%. But maybe come up with something like that, like a 401k plan kind of thing, where they have to pay a certain percentage of their signing bonus back to be able to leave. Basically, almost buy. I mean, Coutinho freaking offered it to us.
Right. Dude was so desperate to leave, he might as well. It's just like, all right, I'll pay everything off. You know what? No biggie. I'll just go. I know what's going to happen there, though. The players are going to say it's too favorable for the clubs. So it's an entirely different, conversation where, men who know way more than us are probably going to have. So
do you think how long a guy over there has been over there makes a difference? Like, if a player has been there for 5 years and says, man, it's time for me to take the next step, do we kind of look at that a bit more favorably than a guy who just came last year?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like with Mane, when he said that, oh, I have a new challenge, people were pretty pissed because it was after we'd lost the Champions League final. But if you're going to think about it, dude, fair enough. He's been with us for how many years when he left? Almost 6, right?
Yeah.
And he helped win us everything. So that's fair enough, I definitely think it's looked at differently, and it's looked at better, for sure. Especially when that player, put the work in, gave his all, which is why I'm still, even though I'm disappointed in him, I'm still kind of soft on Henderson, which I'm sure you are as well. Sure,
I'm soft on Henderson until he, like I say, I wouldn't be as soft on Henderson if he went anywhere else. I just, like I say, with me, it didn't line up with what he stood for all that time. That's what soured me off of that deal. I don't have the same thing with Fabinho, for example, maybe because we got a ton of money for him too that we normally probably wouldn't have gotten. But I feel like, that was the thing with Henderson. And let's face it, we could have really used him right now. We could have used him as a captain for one, because I think if we saw anything this weekend, we saw that the replacement captains are nowhere near the captains that we lost in terms of controlling the team, controlling themselves, keeping a cool head. And, keeping a cool head does not mean you're not aggressive. Hendo was probably the most aggressive guy out on the field and the most intense guy out on the field. That was his fuel. But he could still lead and control. I'm okay with the red card because it's not like it's not like it's a late kick or something like that. That got him the red card. And but what do you say? Like he is definitely gonna get something. As I was watching it, I was like, "Shut up, dude! This is gonna get worse." As a guy who can't control himself on
Right.
the field, it's very hard for me to talk shit.
Right.
But I never got millions to play. I didn't get shit to play. Well, college money maybe. But I got an education. But and I was never the captain of Liverpool. I was the captain of my team, but I was not the captain of Liverpool. And you didn't face fines for swearing after something happened or whatever. But I feel like that's on him to control himself more and not cause that. You already have causing it. You know the situation, and it sucks. And I know it's hard, but that's why you are the captain. You should be cooler than everybody else.
Yeah, this kind of hurts me because Verge is my boy. Like, seriously. And it was disappointing for him to get red carded. But again, to your point, Tim, I'm not going to get on my high horse here and pretend that I'm not going to be acting the same way. Because when he got sent off, I was basically saying what he was saying at the ref. But he was telling the ref what was coming out of my mouth.
You're not the captain of Liverpool.
Right. I know I'm not the captain of Liverpool, but I don't know, man. He's basically saying what every one of us wanted to say. And you know what? Fine. Let's take the 2-3 match ban. Those refs deserve everything that Virgil said to them. Let me just say that. Let me just get that out of the way.
Okay, but here's the thing. It is a red. I mean, the more I look at it, it is a red, or I can see how it's a red. And we would want a red if somebody did that to Mo.
Right.
They would probably not get a red, so you could argue that. But either freaking way, by law, we would probably want a red. So it's hard to keep emotions in check when you truly believe you're in the right. I know, as somebody who could not, and I understand that. But again, I am not the captain of Liverpool. I am not in charge of a freaking billion-dollar operation going there. And your absence of 2-3 matches, Sparky says, I believe so too. I think it's going to be at least 3, if not 5. Because not only he yelled at the dude there, he yelled at the dude here, and obviously he took his time leaving. So there's like 3 charges in total. I mean, it's Klopp as a manager should know better too, but he's shown to emotions get the better of us. But he's not. Klopp getting thrown out is not really affecting everything as much, and that's the thing. And sometimes, people like, we see people. I know we keep coming back to American sports somehow this morning. But like sometimes, like you see like NBA coaches get a technical just to get shit going. You'll see somebody like there are games sometimes where it's in a lull, and as a player, you do something. If it's a hard tackle or whatever it is, and it gets the crowd going again, like impact plays or whatever you do, or you kind of get into it with a guy. If the crowd is out of the game, there are a lot of players. Every club has a couple of them. Like we have a guy like Robertson, for example. Especially if you're home, if he gets into it with a guy, even if it's like a face-to-face, like talking shit kind of thing, that gets the crowd back in. And I feel like that's not the same thing with the Van Dijk situation. You got a red. We're already screwed. And I understand it's hard. I would never be able to do it. But then again, I wouldn't be like, hey, man, I should really be Liverpool captain. I can lead the gang with my coolness. He's supposed to have the calm head. And his backup, the vice captain, is getting silly yellow cards. Again, I don't blame him. I probably would have done the same thing. I thought that was a soft yellow, even within the rule. But then he's playing with fire rest of the way. He probably should have gotten a red from a second yellow right afterwards with the tackle he did. Because if he didn't have a yellow, that's a yellow. The dude got a yellow for delaying a throw-in the first game, or last week, I think. He literally celebrated 20 seconds for earning that throw-in. I celebrated in the living room as well for 20 seconds. Right. But I have no chance of getting a yellow card there, aside from the dog showing me the yellow card. If he doesn't have a yellow card already in the game, he gets a yellow card again for that. So that's my thing, John, is the fact that as a captain, you still have to force yourself to see the big picture. That's why you are the captain.
Well, this is Virgil's first time, I guess, as Liverpool captain. Well, it's not his first time as captain, but I guess, emotions running high. Yeah, Sean is what Sean said is perfect there. Like we're all human, we make mistakes, and Virgil van Dijk, one of our best ever players, is not immune to it. Obviously, everything I said, I'll defend him to death. Like serious time, yes, it's disappointing. He's probably gonna miss like 2, 3, even 4 games if we're freaking unlucky. But my whole thing, Tim, it looked like sure. I remember it was Gally or Mathieu saying by the letter of the law, what
Yes.
he said. What he said, what he did was a red card. But these refs, they're not always to the letter of the law, aren't they? I remember in the Monday podcast, you were touching about consistency.
Yes.
Sometimes a lot of nuance is applied to an incident that looks like you should be applying a to the letter of the law interpretation of it. So I guess my whole thing is when we played Newcastle, it looks like every rule was being enforced to the letter. Right, and rather not seen through the eyes of nuance or interpretation, I guess. So I can understand why there are some people who are saying, "Oh, it was probably not a red; it's probably a yellow." Or with Trent, like, "Oh, he probably should have been sent off with the holding back with Gordon when he was on the breakaway." It's just an absolute mess. Like, I dare say, all right, let me just throw a question at you for a change. If Trent gets sent off for that pull on Gordon, and Virgil commits the same challenge on Isak, does he get sent off?
No.
I say no. Yeah, I say no. So it's
No.
so that's applying nuance, right? So
that's basically, he did not. I honestly think he did not show the second yellow for the Gordon pull because I think even the refs think that rule is kind of bullshit and an over exaggeration. But to set the tone, if you notice, I think they have a quota, like traffic tickets. They have a quota, and that is not a myth, people, by the way. I know people say a myth. I know Scott even say it is a myth, but it's not. Basically, they have a quota. They're like, hey, man, this is the emphasis, so I need you guys to show at least one yellow every game for time wasting. Or, like doing this, kicking the ball away and stuff. I mean, how many times did Newcastle players kick the ball away afterwards? Gordon literally does it 30 seconds after that incident. He kicks the ball away and he doesn't get anything because the quota is already filled. Like I say, normally Trent should have gotten a yellow card for celebrating for 25 seconds for earning a throw in the corner. But he did not because the quota was already filled. And they're not going to show a red card for it. So it's a point of emphasis, but not really point of emphasis. Benjamin says it's true he shouldn't have said anything, but if you watch football games, you can see players insulting refs when they're given foul against them, but nothing happens. And yes, it goes back to that. It's the inconsistency.
How many times have I seen Henderson go like and then say what he says.
I mean, I suck at lip reading, but some of them are so freaking obvious that you know exactly what they're saying. And like Benjamin says, I think half the time the refs pretend they didn't hear it because there's no way they're not hearing that because I'm sure they're not just mouthing it off.
And listen, I don't know if you remember, Tim, a few years ago when we played Man United at Anfield when Salah took his shirt off. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah, that game where we were saying, oh, we're going to win the league. Remember when Firmino scored a goal that was clearly offside and we were celebrating and every Man United player and their mother just gathered around the ref and started cussing him out?
Yes.
Where was the ban there? Like, we're banning Van Dijk for derogatory language, whatever. But what was said in that situation where they surrounded that ref, I'm sure was not good. Like, it was De Gea, like, face-to-face with the ref like that, and then, like, dudes surrounding him. Like, where was the ban there? Like, listen, and man.
That's what sucks. And, John says reffing situation EPL is an absolute joke. I know as an American we whine about the NFL refs, but the EPL refs are another universe of terrible. Yeah, I think so. I almost feel like for example, man, today has been a lot of American sports references. But I agree. I feel like when there is shit happening in NFL and in NBA, I feel like some of the changes they do has made a positive impact. Right? They're like, what? NBA, like, we'll come onto the sideline and explain to everybody what the hell we just came up with after we watched. The dude explains to the whole stadium what the hell happened and why he did it and stuff. Or they try to get rid of gray areas. I feel like in soccer, like the Premier League almost creates more gray areas. and leaves it more to the ref, and it's like makes it a lot more judgment calls. And it's probably the same thing though. I mean, if we're gonna, let's go all out, compare everything to freaking American sports. If you wanted to, and any like person who played, obviously I am way too tiny to play football, but if you played, there is holding in every single play. Yeah. Every single play has holding, but they never call it today.
Yeah,
they don't call every single holding. They only call the obvious ones. I think as like somebody who's watching the sports here, the cussing thing goes to that. The complaining thing goes to that. Like everybody after a fall, like you're like, oh, you got to be shitting me, fuck off. And then you walk back. I mean, I've done it a bazillion times, right? But if you stand there and you keep going at it, that's you going above and beyond what's necessary. I think that's when you get it. When you get a red, automatically you go into a different chapter in terms of what you have to do. The protocols have totally changed now. You saw a red, what do you do afterwards? You standing over there saying stuff to the ref, you're the captain. I understand. And he feels probably, I assume, because at one point when he was complaining, I think it was about the Trent situation, and the ref kind of tried to shoo him away. Van Dijk was like, I'm the freaking captain. I'm talking to you. I have the right to talk to you, kind of a thing.
Which is fair
enough. I don't know if he felt because he was a captain, he could stand over there and argue it. But, I mean, saying, you're a fucking clown is not really discussing the incidents,
He's not wrong, though. He's not wrong. Let me just say he's not wrong. For the record, he's not wrong. These refs are clowns. And,
but, I mean, that's the thing. Sparky says new rules this year about approaching refs, but they're not enforced 90 minutes. You can't just pick,
right.
You know what? The first 10 minutes will enforce the shit out of it. After that, it's a free-for-all, which is what exactly seems to be happening.
New rules means new loopholes, new gray areas, new opportunities for shit like this to happen, unfortunately. Jeez.
They don't even have to answer for their actions. The biggest concern. I mean, I think that's like an issue where I mean, we talked about this a lot, right? The transparency is an issue because we don't know. Like, we don't know how, why, whatever. I mean, mind you, he's probably going to come out and say, I still think it's a red card. The only reason we say it's not a red card is, well, first, it's Van Dijk and we're Liverpool fans. And two, we feel like it wouldn't be called on us, and probably rightfully so, like, because it would probably be a yellow. If it happens to Mo, somebody pummels him out of the way, it's probably like if Jolinton pummels Mo out of the way, it's probably a yellow. And I think that's, again, but we can't make a call. I don't want to make a call based off inconsistencies. Whenever this happens, I try to flip the scenario. If Jolinton did that to Mo when he's going to be clear on goal, I would want a red. But we did not get it. It's
That's
only
not always the case.
When it comes to us, Rashford blatantly died and got a penalty. Fernandez pushed an assistant and got nothing. And that's the problem, right? There's a lot of inconsistency. And, those are a lot of United's references. And United got away with, I mean, I hate United with a passion. I'm pretty sure we all do. We have something in agreement this morning. But they got screwed the next week when the dude literally slapped the ball down and they didn't get a penalty. So it's not even like, I don't even want to say they're just freaking bad. Like, they are just bad. Onana assaults two guys in the box. They don't get a penalty.
Right.
And then the next week they make a cross. The dude literally slaps it down. His hand is like up there with a distance. Clear penalty. They just don't get anything.
Let me just say, Fernandez's comments on that penalty incident, like, sure, it was a penalty for them. But if we're talking about language towards an official, like, he didn't say anything like, he didn't cuss him out or anything like that. But he was basically questioning the integrity of the referees and questioning their capability to do a job. Isn't that a ban? Like, if we're banning players about language and all that, insulting the referees gets you a $50,000 fine in the NBA. Like, where's the ban or the fine for Fernandez? Just saying.
Exactly. I mean, Spunky says what goes around comes around, but I guarantee you there's some Bozo United fans talking right now this morning saying, what goes around comes around to us. They're probably finding a decision that went our way 2 weeks ago and saying, or they're saying, you know what, Trent should have gotten a red for the second one. What goes around comes around, and Van Dijk got it. So I don't want that what goes around comes around. I just want proper refereeing for this $1 billion business over here. Let's get it right. These guys do get a lot of money. John is saying Van Dijk has a bit of learning to do in his captaincy. It's forgivable this time. He needs to own it and never do it again. And that's the thing. I mean, that as a captain, the standard has to be a lot higher. When I saw Ellison, because initially when we're talking in the off season, we had this chat a couple of mornings about who should be captain and stuff. I know like Sparky was mentioned Robertson earlier. That was like one of the candidates we threw out. I think all felt it would be Van Dijk by default, and I really feel like it's Van Dijk by default, not by choice, or maybe for like long term look. But Alisson's name came up at the time. And honestly, I know I said it. I don't know if like his English, the language is going to be an issue. Well, when I see him translating for freaking Nunez in a post match, I'm like, shit, maybe his English is more than good enough. We should have made him captain. I mean, did we pick the wrong people to do the job, or this is just like John is saying, they're kind of learning on the job? It's a process.
No, it's too early. Like one of our commenters said, like these guys are human, and at the end of the day, sure, we won the game. Virgil might miss 2-3 games. It's a learning experience. He'll come back. I'll back him. Obviously, that might be my bias talking because he is my favorite player in the squad. So let me just put that out of the way. I still think he's the one to lead us forward. Granted, any more incidents like these, and we're gonna start asking questions. And that's me talking as the biggest Virgil fan here. So he has to get his head on straight, learn from this incident, and start leading. Same with Trent. I believe we talked about it on the Discord. When things don't go his way, he has a tendency to sulk, which is like the complete opposite of what you should do as a captain. You should be motivating these guys in times of need, in times of struggle, instead of sulking yourself. So again, a learning experience for him. Virgil has had a lot of captaincy experience in Southampton and with the Netherlands. So I guess this is more on him than Trent, because this is Trent's like first experience, being a captain of any sort. So we should be a bit less forgiving with Virgil. But yeah, it's a little too early. Hopefully it doesn't cost us too much. But I feel like if it happens again, that's when the serious questions need to be asked where, did we pick the right guy or something like that? But right now I think it's still too early.
Yeah, as Parker says, Trent can't be vice. I know it's a great story. I was not big on that decision personally. I felt that it could happen. I'm not big on this position. I think it was more done in terms of to boost him back up to his glory days, to go with the haircut. But we are seeing now that it's just not haircut that does it.
Yeah.
But as Sergi says, we do have Nat Phillips, so don't you worry. Kazi will be happy about that. I think here's the thing: you knew they had some kick-ass examples. I don't think I have ever seen, and I'm an old fart. All these years of watching, I cannot remember a captain duo as solid and as like admirable as when we had Hendo and Milner. I mean, in every damn freaking way, in terms of leading an example, showing what it takes, giving efforts, dragging everybody along, kind of getting on people, you name it, that duo had it. I mean, I watched several clubs. Obviously, I'm like a Fenerbahce fan by birth with my grandfather. He was a captain, so I don't know how he was. I wasn't around then. But I've never seen a duo they were the best captain duo that I have ever seen watching this sport. So
even more so than Gerard and Kara, Tim?
Yes.
Oh, really?
I think so. I really think so. They were great captains, but I would put this duo above that duo easily. Because I think, especially Stevie, I think we almost had like two Karas with this duo. Stevie was a captain, I think, more by carrying the team, and I think that's different. Like Hando, and because when you play with somebody who has a lot of skill and they're carrying you, they're leading you. They're a leader because they're dragging you across the line. But it's a lot harder, I think, for a normal average Joe to say, be inspired by that. Because, I don't know, like you and me can go to the gym and see LeBron dunk, but that's not helping me dunk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if I see a dude my height dunking, I'm like, oh, shit, maybe I can dunk too if I try really hard. So I think that's what it brings when you have somebody that's not just leading by their talents. I think that makes a big impact, and effort can get you a long way. And it's probably not justice to a player like Henderson and Milner. It's not like they're like scrubs that were just giving a lot of effort.
Yeah.
But I think it shows a lot when somebody's trying so hard. Doesn't matter your skill level. That's the bar that you got to go to, and you have to try just as hard. And if you have the skill level and you try just as hard, then you become like a top player. And I think that's why that duo to me, nothing against Stevie G and Kara, but I feel like they were. I mean, yeah, and then off the pitch as well. I mean, in everything they did, just like kind of that's why I'm so goddamn disappointed with Hando, John. This is where my disappointment comes from. God damn it, you guys reminded me first thing in the morning over here.
So,
Okay,
so what Hendo did, what Hendo's move, entails, it doesn't, like lessen him in your eyes as Liverpool captain. Considering, you can make an argument that everything that he stood for is moot, right? Considering,
yeah, I don't know what he did. He did. I mean, he did
Yeah.
at the time, despite the challenges, despite the backlash he might get or whatever that other people did not do.
Fair.
What he did during COVID, what he did with other captains and stuff like that. I don't think it's fair to take that away from him either. It does kind of soften it when you eventually do that. I hope to God he does something smart with that money, like charities and stuff like that. But I think it's just a matter of you can't take what he has done away. I think it's still fair for him to get like the credits for like what he did when he did it. There was no way to get a second. You know why? Because the ref was told he made a mistake by not giving Trent a free kick for a foul, and that's. But I mean, there was another one, like I said, that time wasting in the second one. If that first one is a time wasting for flicking the ball, like fucking hosting a party at the corner flag for getting a throw in.
This is what I'm saying.
In a yellow.
This is what I'm saying, Tim. They pick and choose when to be to the letter and when to apply nuance. So this is what's really annoying. So like,
and the whole yellow thing, I think goes to that. But just the fact that showing a yellow card was always a yellow card. I kept asking over here, what happened to that rule? What happened to that rule? And now they were like, you know what? That's right, man. Rule number 83. We should start enforcing that this year. Like, I don't know if they have a meeting beginning of the year. They were like, we're picking out of a hat 72. Like, they're like, okay, we're going to really push this year. I don't understand. If it's a rule, it's a rule. It should have been done all along. But we'll never say refereeing. I think it's the inconsistency and how many times if I had $1 for every time we said this, right? Inconsistency and the lack of transparency. So, but maybe the more we talk about it, the more they'll be forced to change it.
We should be called American Inconsistency or Inconsistency Scouser.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, like I think it was Benjamin or John saying earlier, like, we see a lot of it here, and I feel like, I don't know, like, first of all, sports is not as passionate over here as soccer is. So the reaction is, I think, a lot less overall. Things get forgotten over here. Sports are designed that way, where your team sucks in the NFL. Don't you worry about it. NBA season is right around the corner, kind of a thing. So, your team got fucked. Don't worry, your NBA team will get the calls, kind of a thing. So, but I think soccer is truly life. So when something like this happens, I think it gets a lot more reaction. Gets talked all week. I mean, like if you live in a soccer country. I mean, Sparky can probably. I mean, I grew up like in Turkey. You do not even have to, like, if you're missing the game and you're like in like a public area, you are not really missing the game, because everywhere you go, the game is playing. Everywhere you go, the people know the score. It's truly life, and that's why I think it affects it so much, and people talk about it a lot more. That's why it's shocking that they haven't taken steps to improve it, because I feel like until it really shit hits the fan, they're not going to. Even sometimes they've changed the rules mid-season because of the backlash, and that's what I'm, I guess, mostly hoping for over here. Gotta let the ref thing go with so much time on. I know, but then but the bad thing,
it happens every week.
You can sign 8K say those if the ref calls are bad, if it still goes down the hill. I know we always say you gotta beat the refs as well sometimes, and I do understand that. I know what Sparky means by that. That's why I'm kind of waiting for this freaking transfer window to close so we can just talk games and not talk about who's going to be signed. But on that note, is prediction time. So
No.
before we go, it's time to predict what's
No.
gonna happen. Well, I guess on Friday I thought it was after the window. I didn't realize that was the last day. So we're still gonna be in the window, probably reporting last minute action, right? On the first.
Are we?
I thought it was closing on the first.
Yeah, I thought it was
Usually,
closing on the first as well.
yes, on the first. So when we do it in the morning, there will still be time to get deals across the line. But I think we don't do a lot of like last second ones, or the last second ones we do. We never
Arthur.
either pretend like Arthur or Ben Davies or something like that. So, doesn't matter. By then, we'll probably know what's happening. Anything Sparky says, no signings or no signings.
Well, Sir Z pointed out, I think last show, or was it the pregame or postgame show last Saturday, where I said that we were going to get Caicedo and Lavia. I was horribly wrong. So I'm going to do a reverse psychology thing and say we are not going to sign anyone right now. I have never been, like, listen, Tim, before you give your prediction, I have never been more wrong in a Liverpool summer. I said Henderson was not going to go, right? I said we were going to sign Caicedo. I said we were going to sign Lavia. 0 for 3. So you know what? Maybe fourth time's a charm. We're not going to sign anyone. We're not. Absolutely nothing. There's no chance. That's my prediction.
I like the reverse psychology.
Yeah.
I like the reverse psychology. Sergi says, would rather the window close now and that know that Salah's staying. But their window doesn't close for another 3 weeks.
Oh, boy.
Like their window doesn't close till the 20th, I want to say. Or
We have bonus levels, Tim. We have bonus levels for transfer discussion because they're transfer.
God. Yeah, that's the thing. Like next 3 weeks, all the interns unite for more like Saudi rumors over here. John says he's not confident his signings are coming through either. I think there is one. I do think there is one because the space is there for one. But the problem is going to be it could be an underwhelming one. Because I think what we want is going to be overpriced and we're not going to overpay. And kind of like what Sparky's saying, I know it's not our money, but we should not spend it. If we don't get anybody, I don't think Mo is going anywhere. Because, I mean, I don't know if you're counting on Bando. I mean, we're not going to get that money and be like, oh, can't wait till January till we go shopping.
Let me throw a scenario at you, Tim. We get Gravenberch, right? How would you rate this window?
Damn, good question. Damn you.
Yeah.
8. Yeah, 8 from
8?
7.5.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I would have probably given it a 9 or something like that because that is one heck of a rebuild for a midfield. And be able to kind of convert some of your older players to cash, I guess, like Fabinho and stuff. The fact that it's coming so late would deduct automatically a point, I think.
Mm-hmm.
What would you rate it if we get Gravenberch? So we can play this game.
7, I guess, because I still feel like we need a CB.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that going into this, I mainly wanted this midfield resolved, and I would feel like it's resolved. So I think that's why I'm giving like more chance of kids being bought.
You know what? Yeah, I agree.
That's how the window is going to keep all of our cheeks clinched for the next week. See, I don't think Gravenberch is an underwhelming signing. I will be happy with Gravenberch. I think he has a lot of potential and he's a good player. I'd be all for that. Let's go. Sparky says average, but I mean, yeah, if we get Gravenberch, I'm a happy guy. You know, we can always call back Hando to play center back or something like that. The center back would be a concern. And then right back, now that's...
yeah, we didn't touch on it. Connor Bradley's
hurt. That's kind of like a concern because Gomez was kind of like your backup. I don't think Connor Bradley was the backup anyway. I think Gomez was your right backup. Well, now he's playing center back, so he can't be in 2 places at the same time. But yeah, this week will be a big test. I just hope, like, it's going to be important to see how this team responds to Newcastle. Sometimes you have these games that can really catapult you, or you have these games like the City game last year where it was like, you know, it was a one-game thing kind of a deal. I don't think it was a one-game thing, but we're saying Sergi says Tyler Morton is staying. Well, there you go. Problem solved.
my thing about the Newcastle thing, I'm glad that you pointed it out. We're going to face Aston Villa that's equally as tough, so there's no chance of it being a trap game. Because remember when we beat, I think it was City, and then we lost to Forest, I think, on the road? The perfect trap game. At least now we'll still be locked in, carrying over from the Newcastle game, taking on Villa. which is,
That's
I think,
fair, actually.
yeah,
I think that's a good statement. And the fact that we're home, I don't
yeah,
think that, it would be. It's just the defense worries me, and I think it probably worries
mm,
everybody. But in some ways, not having Van Dijk there, I know as scary as it is,
yeah,
it's not the old Van Dijk, number one. And two, it's almost like going down to 10 men, where everybody on that team knows Van Dijk is not there. So I think the defensive awareness will be more than normal because the normal guy to clean up the shits is
yeah,
not there. Kind of like it's like your mom is not here to clean up behind you when you
right,
move to a college, so clean up your own shit kind of deal. I
right.
think that's basically what it becomes. You start having to do your own dishes. So let's see how that goes. But I will be back tonight with the panel. It's going to be interesting. I'm hoping the Fulham Alex can make it so that they can have a Fulham Arsenal chat
Yeah, that's gonna
live
be
on air
interesting.
over there.
Yeah,
But we will have Villa representation as well. So I'm sure there'll be some talk about that. So tune in tonight, 8 o'clock Central, 9 Eastern. I always confuse those, but I got it right this time. And I will be back with John on Friday morning for
yes,
the morning coffee show. So have a great day, everybody. Let's just keep an eye on this. Keep refreshing. Keep refreshing. Something is going to happen. I guarantee you. So take it easy. Have a great day, everybody.